Erin Herle, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
We're going to start with a match breakdown, and this is Erin and Josh and I were talking about this before we hopped on. You know, normally when we have people on, they want to talk about a match that they felt like they were at their best, or maybe one that they really felt like they were able to showcase their jiu-jitsu, but you had a different idea, and that was to show a match where you felt you just survived.
Yes.
Can you talk more about that before we get into that?
Yeah. I thought it would be really important to kind of see where this was the biggest match of my life. This was the biggest opportunity of my life. So when I started training as a white belt, I was like, I want to be a black belt world champion. So I finally got my black belt in November of 2017. And I did, a couple tournaments here and there just to get points for worlds and pans. And so I went to Europeans. And when I went to Europeans, it was a smaller division. So I knew that in the bracket, all I had to do was have 2 fights. But I knew Bia Mesquita was on the other side. And so I thought about it as like one match at a time. But at the same time, as soon as I went into the finals and I'm like, wow, I am right now the person that like I looked up to for so long. I mean, I was taking pictures of Gracie Mag everywhere. I literally have an interview of me interviewing Bia Mesquita in, I think it was 2013 or 14 in Abu Dhabi. And I was just like this little shy little purple belt. And she was already the great, black belt competitor that she was. So obviously, this was like, wow, this is my chance. And so how do you go into something of like, well, I just got my black belt and I don't know if I'm ready to fight someone of this caliber, who I think she's pound for pound the best just because of all of her range. Mm-hmm. But her face is really scary when she fights. When I had met her, when I had seen her around, of course, she smiles, she's happy. But as soon as you're her competitor, you're her opponent, it's like, whoa. So that was the interesting part of, you have this idea of like, wow, I made it to the finals of a black belt major. The big camera is going to follow me and they're going to commentate on me. Like, oh my gosh. And of course that's scary because now you got more attention.
Yeah.
And so this match was after the fact, being able to look back at it and be like, well, this is what it is. This is where I'm at. This is what I did and didn't do. And I will say that I was on the back pedal the entire time, completely reactionary. And there's some interesting moments that I'm excited to kind of show.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's hop into it. Can you full screen it? Yeah, cool.
Why is it not full screen?
Maybe okay. Just Google Meet. This is the way.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Okay, let's hit it.
So this is obviously, and I want to kind of like talk about where my head at was here.
Yeah.
Because, there were other matches going on. It wasn't Worlds in the sense that they just have like 1 or 2 mats, like where everyone's watching. But in this particular venue, people are above you. And so it does feel like Coneheads when he's fighting the Garthok. Okay. And they're just like, or that Teddy Roosevelt, like it's not the critic who counts, but it's the one that's...
I have that on my wall.
Yeah, see, it's beautiful, right? And so that's what I felt. I felt like I wasn't able to know about self-compassion back then because this was 2018. But if I had some, it would have been a lot different. And I probably would have looked around and said, wow, I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I'm going to take it all in, all the sounds, the scenes, everything. But instead, it was just, am I even prepared for this? So that's kind of where I'm at, literally, right here. And I do my thing. So I have a ritual where, because my feet always get so sweaty, I end up having to wipe them down. So I bow, I get on the mat, and I do this little wipe down rhino thing. And it just became like, all right, that's my thing. Because I saw that other people had their own thing. I think Bia, not sure if she does it here, but she usually goes down and prays. And I want you to look at her face. Her furrowed brow, she's just like, I am here. This is my job. Mm-hmm. And so this is where I am like, okay, I'm going to do what I do. I pull guard. I always pull guard. That's just what I do. And as soon as the ref said, combate, it was like I was looking at her face going, whoa, like I'm in this. I'm in this.
Yeah.
And so you'll see that she gets right. She gets right to. I just freeze. I'm just like, I don't know what I'm waiting for, but I basically just get into a really deep omoplata, and she was like, I'm gonna finish this pretty fast, and I'm flexible. So here I realize that, yeah, I'm going to get finished if I stay here. So as she goes to grab my arm, I just sort of slide through, knowing that I was going to have, the sweep points against me. And so she's already passing. I don't have a breathing point until about here.
Can you pause it really quick?
Yes.
Just so that the people watching can gain some context on the flexibility that you have. Can you do the thing that you did last night at the gym with your... or a couple nights ago with your shoulder?
Yeah, I think it's easier to go forward to back. So I rotate this, and then it just kind of goes.
And you can go all the way.
Whoa.
I can jump rope with my arms.
Whoa.
Have you always been able to do that?
Yes.
Really?
I learned it in 5th grade because I didn't know that I could do it. I don't remember how. I don't know if I saw someone do it. I can also do like the whole like back bend exorcism type thing and go all the way under myself onto my elbows.
Dang.
I'm 34. So
not
like,
a lot of 34-year-olds can do that.
Right. So, and people would be like, why, how are you so flexible? Like, why, what did you do? And I'm like, I was born this way.
Yeah.
I really think it's Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I think it's a syndrome, but maybe it's a disorder. I don't really know. I have not been diagnosed with it, but it's a hypermobility where even in your joints, there's instability.
Okay.
My sister used to have her knees like dislocate all the time. I haven't, knock on wood, I haven't had any dislocations or anything like that, but I did have my elbow, the radial head was cracked because I was in an armbar when I was a blue belt, and I was like, it feels like a lot of stretching. Like, I should probably tap, and then by then it was just, it was done, and then I couldn't rotate my wrist for like 2 weeks.
On the topic of like the attributes like flexibility and stuff, I've heard that too with like people where their flexibility kind of became like a thing where they didn't know where sort of the point of breaking was or something like that. But as far as like, I guess different attributes in jiu-jitsu, people talk about flexibility, strength, speed, stuff like that. Do you feel like flexibility is something like that has helped you in jiu-jitsu?
It's funny because when I first started and I was training under Hamala Bahal, who I knew was like already, multiple time world champion, and he's like, whoa, you're really flexible. And I immediately looked at him and was like, does that mean I'm going to be good? That's all I cared about. I was like, is that a good thing? Yeah. And he basically was like, if you want it to be, like if you put it, you know what I mean? It was like, you can't answer that, right?
In the right context,
exactly.
Maybe. But.
And then there was a moment where I had trained at like the Health Gracie, and I was just visiting, and I was still a white belt, and I went to go roll with a guy, and he just put me like, he stacked me inverted, and he went, whoa, there was like no resistance. Yeah. And then I would also find myself in situations where I couldn't get my guard back, because once you put me in a ball that I so willingly, I'm like, yeah, fetal position, I love this, but then I can't get out. Right. Plus, it just looks bad to the refs.
Yeah. So it can kind of become a crutch in some context.
Exactly, because when you become willing to go into the situations of like, I'm okay here, but it's not serving me in terms of my jiu-jitsu. It's not serving me in terms of points. So
do you think she was surprised at all when she tried to throw that omoplata on and you just like kind of squirmed out of it like that?
I have actually a clip from a highlight. I remember Patty Fontez, purple belt, my first purple belt tournament was Nogi Worlds, and I'm in top half, and she's trying to Kimura me, and I basically, my arm was just going around, and you could see it on her face. She's like, like looking around, like, this is not,
okay.
This is not real. So, you end up putting yourself in situations where you're like, oh, I'll fight out of it. Kind of like how wrestlers are like, no, I'm tough. Like, you might try to guillotine me, I'll get out. But it's like, why would you put yourself in that situation in the first place? Right. So that's why I started lifting.
Okay. Yeah.
And I had been lifting at this point. So I did have some rigidity.
Yeah. Yep.
But you'll see how it serves me, and it doesn't.
Got it. Okay. So you have a rest point right here.
Yes. And so she basically weirdly shelved my leg.
Okay.
On her leg.
Yeah,
and so I took my left leg and I hooked it under, thinking that was going to square up my hips with her again. Of course, I had to make sure the grip wasn't illegal, because you can't have your fingers inside.
Right.
So you see my foot going, and she realizes that, and I try to follow, and and then I try to get the underhook. I'm trying to just like hold on to her. And it was just, watch Erin squirm. So obviously here I knew that there was the armbar attempt.
Right.
So I'm able to basically be on bottom and top at the same time. And this is where I finally get on top enough where I look at Isaac, like just as my anchor of like, okay, I'm still in one piece. I'm still here. Like, yeah, there's points against me, but I also didn't expect to win. So I think I went into this thinking, how far can I get? Because I had never had the experience to be able to say how good I was. So here, she's trying for the arm. She's so strong. So her hips are so strong that she actually takes the leg and like just
like crushes
scrapes my face.
Yeah,
like you'll see. And I just eat it. So from here, my whole head is like kicked back. Yeah. The whole time. And she's still going and I'm like, oh. And then she starts going for, I square up. Now this is the key. So here, she's trying. She gets into her close guard and watch what she does and how chill she is. So she realizes, okay, I don't have it. She's safe. All right. She looks at her hands. She fixes her hair, fixes her gi. Fixes her makeup. And so that happened to me as a blue belt. And it was really hard for me to realize it in the moment. But afterwards, I saw a picture where I had my clothes guard on this girl, and she was like fixing her hair. And I'm like, why did I give her the opportunity? Like, why am I not keeping the pace? Why are we just agreeing to break here?
Yeah.
And so that was like, it wasn't disrespectful because I didn't take it as that. I don't know. I can't read what she's sending out. But I think it's her confidence.
Yeah.
It is her ego. Absolutely. Just kind of being like, yep, this bitch ain't got nothing on me. That's kind of how that felt. But seeing it happen, it was two feelings. One of them was, wait, I can breathe now. She's not attacking. So now I can sort of see if I can stand up, I can do something and get it back in my corner. But hers, it also was like, that sucks. Like I'm not even a threat to you at all.
Do you think people at that level have to be like that? Or do you think they can get to that level without that?
That's the thing. I don't know if it's disrespect.
Okay.
Because the thing is that I deal a lot with my clients is that this is a very dichotic relationship. If I win, you lose. If you lose, I win, right? I'm taking something from, it's me or you, Bao. And everything is kind of an inverse relationship. If I'm playing guard, you're probably the passer and vice versa. Like we know whose job it is based on what the other person's positioning and job is. It's all relational. And so, you could say that she was trying to create a reaction out of me, but I don't think she needed to. I was pretty, I had nothing for her. I had no, like I, as they say, like usually in the cage, like you got to make someone respect you, right? You got to get that respect back. And so here I was thinking, well, she's making it clear that I'm no threat and that she's, not respecting me as an opponent, not necessarily disrespecting, but
okay.
But wanted me out of there for sure.
Were you kind of like thinking all of this stuff in the moment, or like in that moment, all that kind of stuff was going through your head?
ADHD. And so for females, how ADHD usually comes around is like, it's the hyperactive part is internal. So, and that's why women are often late diagnosed because we're not fidgety. We're just really, really intrusive rumination, thoughts that are going faster than we can even say. Auditory processing issues, trying to interrupt people because I already know what you're getting at, kind of thing. And so there's a lot going on in my head here, and that's the issue with performance anxiety because you don't know what to focus on, and focus is that spotlight, right? So, I mean, you can mess it up by focusing on the wrong thing. You can mess it up by not focusing on, too broad, too narrow, if you're thinking about what's happening in your body versus what's happening outside of your body. So I think part of it in this moment was I went internal and I was like, still got all my limbs. Like we're okay. We're still in it.
Right.
And, another thing was, wait, I might be able to breathe here, but this is her best position.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this isn't gonna go very well. And I also want you to notice just my legs. So normally I try to be on my toes, but I have a different mat so you can see it where I'll be on my toes, but my butt will also be on the mat.
Okay.
Because the weight of their legs.
Yeah.
I can't prop myself up as someone normally would.
Yeah.
So I very much collapse here. And I think that's what also helps her. And so you have to remember that black belt matches are 10 minutes in IBJJF, and I think it's ridiculous. Look at me. I'm like, oh boy, we still got 8 minutes of this thing. If I'm going to try to survive, if my only goal is to survive, that's still going to be really, really hard. And so at this point, again, I'm just being reactive, right? I'm tucking my arm. I'm trying to make it look like I'm okay. Look at I can make contact with my coach. I can make contact with other people. So it was more of a safety thing of like I'm still here and I still have control over my body and my wherewithal. So obviously I know what's going to happen here if she's breaking my posture. It was easy to see. And so basically my approach was not to like, oh, I'm going to intelligently defend this, because this is someone who she's the lady goat, right?
Yeah.
And so you want to talk about someone like Hodger. You know what Hodger's going to do to you. You're not going to be able to stop it. So my intelligently defending was not going to be it. My approach here was just prevent her from getting the last thing she needs. So I'm going to shield my face. I just used my face. See, look, so this is the issue with breaking grips, because especially when you're already unstable and someone who knows that there's going to be a big reaction. I gave a big reaction and she used it. So here I am going, trying to break this grip all sloppy. And she was like, oh, okay. Took me over. I thought, okay, I'm cool. I was digging my foot in to try to use my flexibility again. And she was already reaching for my lapel. And if you look here, she goes for my arm at the same time that she's going for the choke.
Oh.
So if I did not tap to the choke, I would have tapped to the arm.
Damn.
And so that was a full checkmate, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I hated that happened here was the ref, who I was friendly with, came over and asked, "Are you okay?"
Oh man, that doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good because clearly, like, I'm fine. Like, yes, did I just endure an onslaught? But that's not the time to ask someone. And you're supposed to be an unbiased ref.
Right.
And I don't need you to like help me up. Like, it felt more disrespectful because it felt like he was just like, "Whoa, you made it out alive. Like, are you okay? We didn't expect you to do anything."
Yeah.
And then to also sit there and go, well, that is proof that I don't have what it takes. And when you don't have, a lot of guidance, I guess, in terms of mentally how to deal with that, how to go against someone who is the best in the world. How do you go against someone with like, whatever confidence you have, whatever competence you have, and how do you get into that mindset of, I know that the cards are stacked against me, but I also know that it's anyone's game.
Yeah. Knowing what you know now, if you could go back and do it again, what would you change?
There's a lot, because it wasn't just this match. I didn't have a lot of guidance in the gym. I come from very big gym names, and there's not a lot of attention that you get, especially as a female. And that is not a shot at anybody. That is not like, oh, you didn't do enough. It's just that the culture itself, and I think that my ADHD and sensitivity kind of really messed me up as well, because it was like, why can't you just train hard like everyone else? Why can't you just shut up and do the thing that we tell you to do? Why can't you just, you just got to train more. You got to try harder. When I was sacrificing so much and trying so hard. and it like never was enough. And so when you go to this level and it almost feels like if you're going to side on the critic, all I could think about was these people going, how the hell did she get in the final?
Yeah.
Like, what? I could have done better,
Right.
you know? And so I think it's the counting yourself out right from the beginning. And also having the wrong focus. I didn't know what to focus on.
Okay.
I didn't even know what I was going to do to her.
Yeah.
I was just like, well, I pull guard, so I should probably wait to get a good grip and pull guard. But if you saw in the beginning, I just squatted and stood there in front of her,
Right.
doing nothing.
Okay.
And so that's the part where, and whether I had a game plan or not, it's not the point. It's the intention. It's the direction. It's where I'm going with it. What I'm good at, focusing on my strengths, rather than just thinking this is the pound for pound best. And who am I to take that away from her? I just want to see if I don't embarrass myself. Like, just don't embarrass yourself.
Okay. From a, I guess, match preparation standpoint, you spoke at my gym the other night and about building a pre-match routine, and I'm curious to know if you had a pre-match routine before you got into mental coaching. If so, was it different than what you have now? Can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, I did not.
Okay.
I
Okay.
didn't know what that was.
Okay.
I didn't know that it exists. I thought every gym, it was like your coach gave you something, and if your coach didn't give you something, then it was like there wasn't a way to do things, and no one was really talking about it. And mind you, by this point, I was no longer working for Gracie Mag, but I had worked with them for 2.5 years. And my job was to pull the teeth out of these people who didn't have a lot to say about their performances and how they do things. It was just, I train really hard. I just train a lot. I eat right. I do whatever my strength and conditioning coach tells me. And then I go out there and I do the thing because, like, I'm the shit. And that just didn't work for me.
It's really like surface level.
And so so what many people think, and this is really common, is that you either have it or you don't. And that's just not true. That's a very fixed mindset. So we may not be super strong. We may not be super fast. We may not be super quick. We may not be super educated, but we can move the needle.
Mm-hmm.
You can be more of that. You can be more of that. And so one of my things was, I'm not a takedown person. I don't do takedowns. I can't do takedowns. It's not my thing. So did I spend any time doing takedowns? No,
Right.
Because I'm like, I'm just not a takedown person. And that label, that identity really restricted me. And I'm sure there were plenty more that were restricting me. And so it's really important to go into like expectations and like, who told you that? Like, who said that you need to do that? Like, where did that come from, and where are you internalizing it from? Mm-hmm. And are you truly doing this for you? What are your values? I didn't know my values then. I wanted so badly to just make the podium, have golds and have people tell me I'm cool and have Facebook or Instagram likes. Like, that was it.
Right.
Because I thought it was cool to walk around and have someone want to get a picture with me.
Mm-hmm.
So more on that, like rewinding back to this year, 2018. So what were the stakes for you in this match as an athlete, as a person? Can you talk about that?
That's a really good question, because most competitive anxiety can be brought down to like, well, what's at stake? And many times when people talk about it, it's like, well, then people are going to change their opinion of me, or people aren't going to want to train with me anymore. And it's like, okay, let's play it out. And I think for me, it was, I still in the back of my head thought, because I was, doing seminars and this was my life. And so I thought, maybe someone's going to come along with money and say, hey, I want to back a gym for you. Do you want to open a gym? And that was going to be an opportunity. Or I thought if I could get better sponsors that were actually going to pay me so that I don't have to live with my mom, during this whole thing. And by this time, I had already run out. I think I had already run out of the money that I used when my dad died. I used like $15,000 from his life insurance, and that's what I used to kind of go around and do, the whole seminars. Obviously, I was making money, but like still the travel, everything else, and just making sure that I was eating healthy, having all the resources. And no one said like, this is what you need to do. And if they did, I probably just chucked it off because I was like, that doesn't work for me. That's not my thing. I don't do that. And so it was hard because there's two things. Like, you have to be able to ask for help, but you also have to accept help. And so I think that might have been another barrier. But I think it was obviously all in my head in terms of what's at stake. Part of it was I'm the underdog. That's okay. But like, if I'm too much of an underdog, I don't want people to question my competence. I don't want people to question whether I deserved to be in that final. And so that's the part. And that was more internal. And that goes back to just self-worth. And do I deserve to be anywhere? Hell yeah, I'm a human being. I have inherent value. Of course I deserve. But I didn't feel like that. I felt like I was constantly just trying to be seen as one of them.
It's like a constant imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Like, and it wasn't necessarily for like lack of skill. It was like, I just couldn't put it all together. I would just get really scared. And the arousal levels would be so high that my physiological sensations were just so overpowering that it was very hard for me to see it as facilitative. It was very hard for me to see it as like, I do have control, and so that's why it's not really about control. It's about perceived control.
Going, because I want to ask you about this, like the physical reactions, right, that we have before we like get onto the mat.
Yeah.
I'm curious, one, how many tournaments / like matches had you done up until this point in your entire like jiu-jitsu career?
Well, I started competing 3 months in, and then I was competing probably every couple months. I got my blue belt after a year because I won the first Las Vegas Open. Yeah. That was 2010. And then I competed at Pans every year because being in California, being in LA, it was like, okay, Worlds and Pans. I did it from the beginning, from white belt to blue belt. At blue belt, I did it twice, one under Romulo, one under Cobrinha. I got second the first time, and I closed out the second time with my Cobrinha teammate. And then I got second at Worlds. I lost to just an advantage. So I got my purple belt in 2012. It was about a year and a half in, maybe like less than 2 years in. And then I ended up, doing a lot at purple belt, and that was a lot of growth for me. I started doing more tournaments because I started working for Gracie Mag. So they'd be like, hey, we need you to cover Chicago Open. I'm like, okay, I'll just take a red eye. I'll get there at 5 in the morning. I'll start taking photos. I'll get in my gi, and I'll be waiting for my division. I'll still take photos while in my gi. And then I'm going to fight, and then I'm going to go back to taking photos, and then I'm also going to have to be aware of what happened with all the black belts and the majors. The major, like, okay, who won the double gold and blue belt, purple belt, female, male, and then write up an account of everything that night with the edited photos.
Oh, right. That's wild.
And so I was spreading myself thin a lot, and so it was very interesting. So I went to Abu Dhabi 6 times. Most of them, one was for Gracie Mag that sent me. One time was I paid my own way, and then the other times I earned the ticket. And then I had, done Worlds, I said every year, Pans. Europeans I did, blue belt, purple belt, twice at brown, and then this was at black, my last time at Europeans. I went to Brazil and competed. I did the Asian Open at black belt.
Nice.
So I was everywhere. Yeah. Like, I didn't have an off season. No-gi, I did no-gi Pans, I did no-gi Worlds. So I was just doing everything I could. And of course they say, like, the more exposure, the better. Like, you'll get used to it. And it's like, yeah, but the routine that I had was, well, if I had blueberry oatmeal from Starbucks, that morning, and I did well, then clearly I have to eat blueberry oatmeal from Starbucks. Right. So it was just like trying to regurgitate what happened, but it wasn't functional. And that's what we call superstition.
Right.
When it doesn't have the function behind it.
Right.
It's every hockey player ever.
Right.
So
Right? Yeah. But I mean, if it puts you in the right mental state, right? Because self-talk,
right.
Whatever I tell myself, I could be like, damn, mama, you the shit. Right. And like, or I could be like, you've got this, Erin. It's like, however I'm going to talk to myself, it needs to be believable, right? So it needs to be your own, but it also should have some sort of function behind it.
Right. The reason I asked about, and you kind of already touched on it, like the volume of competing that you had done, and you had like literally been in different countries doing this, which even just for some people, I can see like just being in another country by itself is kind of overwhelming. And then on top of that, you're also competing, which can be crazy. But with all of that experience, I think one thing people are curious about is kind of looking at the beginning of the journey, and let's say up until this match specifically. How did, if at all, like the nerves and adrenaline and all of those like physiological responses or sort of any like psychological adaptations you made up until that point, up until this point specifically, how did that change over the course of your competing?
Well, I take a Goldilocks approach for most people because I feel like I can tell you what's good and what you should do, but I think you need to put yourself in those situations, kind of trial and error, and also to see the parameters. And so we often live in the extremes. And so I had one client who said, I don't know if I'm being too rigid when I'm drilling or if I should be more like loose. And I'm like, try it out. Go be flaccid. Go be limp. See how that feels and works. And then be super rigid. Plank on them. Like do something that, right? Like just be stiff as a board and see how that works. And then you know what that looks like. And this works for like overconfidence and underconfidence. And so knowing those parameters was really, really helpful. Being able to see, okay, well that didn't work and that did work. And what if I do it? So like I always competed pretty well as a white and a blue belt because people would call me a sandbagger because I just picked it up really well. I was doing spider guard from white belt. So girls didn't really know what to do. And even though it was really sloppy, I had a goal, and I was just a dog.
Dog. Erin Herle. Dog.
And so I brought that out. And I remember blue belt. I remember because I was doing worlds and I had to go get a coffee and like slap myself because I was like too chill.
Because you were just like relaxed.
Yeah, I was like, I got this.
Right. Yeah.
And then.
So kind of from day one, it sounded
changed.
like you had initially that you had this confidence.
Yes. Because I had but it was like also like because I had the results to back it up. So therefore, this is how my self-worth became tied into my performances because I felt really good after my good performances and I felt really bad after my bad performances. And then I realized like everybody wanted to congratulate me at the gym and I got my belt sooner than other people and I got attention. And now I'm, these girls are on the blogs like writing like, yeah, Erin's the top, whatever. I was at the top rank, and so that gave me the worth, that gave me the confidence to be like, yeah, I'm the shit. I'm a good person. It wasn't, I'm smart. It wasn't, I'm funny. I'm a great friend. I didn't have any of those. I was like, I don't give a shit about any of those. I want to be good at competing. I want to be able to kick people's ass and I want to perform.
Can we back up for just a second? Is it safe to say that, kind of touching on what Josh was asking, like when you started competing, you would go to competitions and try to live in those extremes so that you could find the balance or the right space to be in? That was very intentional?
It was intentional, but at the same time things kind of worked out for me. It was easy. And things got really hard at purple belt when I'm triangling these girls and they're not tapping, or they're studying me and now they're double guard pulling with me because that was new at the time, or you come up and get the advantage, things like that. Or they were kicking my leg as I would sit because they knew that I was just going to pull guard, or they would jump into mount at the same time that I'm pulling guard. So so it's happened multiple times at black belt as well. Really? It's on my I recently posted it too. And you just don't know what the person's going to do, and you can only, jiu-jitsu is decision making, but I just thought, I have to show that I'm superior, and if I lose, it means this person is better than me, and if I win, it means I'm better than them. And then if they beat someone else who's good, then I can say that because I beat them, then that I'm better than that person too. And it was just so ego oriented. And so then as it got harder, and then I'd have like really up and down success. I did okay at pans at brown belt, no-gi pans, and then I did no-gi worlds and I won no-gi worlds. I went to Europeans, I won Europeans, and then I had my first match with Array Alexander from Lloyd Urbans, and we had fought at blue belt twice, and she ended up beating me first match because this was before seeding. Like we didn't have, it was just random. And then I drew her again first match at Worlds, and she beat me again. So I went from winning and feeling really good about myself, I'll be like just minimizing and being like, well, I only had 2 girls in Ogi Worlds and whatever. We do that because we're perfectionists, whatever. And so going into 2 straight back-to-back losses, it was incredibly difficult to go, who am I? Like, am I good? Like, I can't even prove it. And how am I regressing? How am I going backwards? And then I had a little bit of a shift where I said, I'm going to make it more of a spectator friendly thing. Like, it's going to be more about what I do in the match rather than the outcome, because I had a really awesome final at brown belt at Pans, gi Pans with Catherine. And like, people were telling me it was such a cool match. They didn't care who won or lost. Like, they didn't like go, oh, too bad you lost. No, they were just like, that was sick. And I was like, as long as I'm bringing the dog out, I can feel good about that.
Sounds very Jeff Glover-esque. That's it seems to be his.
I am gonna say, I hope you never, ever associate me with Jeff Glover again.
I don't know Jeff. I don't know anything. All I know is
I will make that very clear.
All right, that's
and I am not ashamed to say that.
That's totally fair.
It's a level of like, yeah, like I'm just gonna send it because I am what I am.
Yeah.
But also still having the wherewithal to say, what do I need in this moment? And what do I need to be doing? And that's where that pre-performance routine came about, where it's basically periodization, where I broke it down into phases.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you can say, as long as I do all of these things in this phase, and I can go, yes, and then I can move on to the next phase. When you get to the actual mat, that whole competition process has already gone so well for you. And you've shown that you can get through each stage and do everything that you said you wanted to do. Maybe you have to be more adaptable and flexible. Your first gi doesn't pass, all that stuff. But at least you can say, like, things are going my way, and I already front-loaded the work. I already know I need this in order to prepare. And then I do it, and then I get mat side. Now I just have to do the thing.
Yeah.
Because so many people look at the competition process as just the matches, but that's only a small portion.
It's the smallest part.
Yeah. It's like bull riding, you know? Like, you know, you have this intense 7 seconds, and then, okay.